Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar. I think maybe we begin now, even though we still have people joining us every couple of seconds. I think I might begin. So hello and welcome again everyone to today's webinar, Establishing and Implementing Sustainable National Forest Monitoring System. Thank you all for joining us. Today's webinar, as you all know, is part of the live online course Forests and Transparency under the Paris Agreement. And this webinar is part of the fourth module, the first of two webinars. So well done everyone for making it this far. You've already made it through 3 modules. So it's really great to see you all here and we can finally interact. We can see and hear you. We've been speaking in the forums the past 3 weeks. So it's great to finally have you with us here today, and we're excited to be able to interact with you. And in this webinar, we are going to be talking about national forest monitoring systems and the process to establish one and the effects and the uses that this can have for a country. The session will be in English with simultaneous translation into French and Spanish, and you can switch to the French or Spanish channel using the button that you should see just below in your Zoom screen. It looks like a planet or a globe. So hopefully anyone who wants to listen in French or Spanish is able to find that. Today we will have 3 presentations followed by a 25-minute question and answer session where we want to hear from you. So get ready with your questions for that. And a quick word on the format of the Zoom today. Your microphones are going to be muted just to minimize audio problems because we have quite a lot of participants, which is great to see. But the session is all about interacting with you. So we want to give you the opportunity to ask questions to the experts whose work that you've been learning about and exploring the past couple of weeks. So take the opportunity and don't hesitate to pose your questions in the Q&A box, which I think should also be visible at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can also write the name of the speaker if you want to at the start of the question. That'll help the speaker find the questions directed to them. As you listen to their presentations, some questions might come up in your mind. And if somebody has already posed a question that interests you as well, that you find interesting, you can give it a virtual thumbs up inside the Q&A box. You will notice that there is also a chat, and I see a lot of you are already using the chat, which is great. My colleagues today will be helping me find the most appropriate questions for our speakers, and to make it easier for them to find and respond to the questions, we do ask you to please keep the questions, any questions you have, any technical questions, in the Q&A box, whereas use the chat for if you have any problem, maybe you can't hear the webinar, or as I see a lot of you are doing, just to say hi, to say where you're from, to say how you're doing, and also to let you know the webinar will be recorded and we will share the recording with you all afterwards. You may already know me from the course that you've been following the past couple of weeks. My name is Emily Donegan and I work for the National Forest Monitoring Team at the FAO, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. Now that you know who I am, I'd love to know more about you. So if you haven't already done it, write your name and your affiliation in the chat. It's nice always to see who's here with us in the webinars. So as well, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you also to our first speaker, David Morales. David is a forestry officer at FAO. He's an expert of national forest monitoring, being the lead author of the Voluntary guidelines, which you've studied the past weeks on national forest monitoring, which and he has over 30 years of experience himself on forest monitoring. So thanks so much for being with us here today, David. Over to you.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are, and glad to be here today with you. In this presentation, as Emily already mentioned, I will talk about the FAO voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring, and I hope my talk will complement the information you had learned during the online module. Next. To talk about the guidance, First, let's talk about the role of a national forest monitoring system. Normally, a national forest monitoring system is related with data and information on forest resource of a country, where this information is used by policy and decision makers. More recently, it is taking more relevance in the context of international and national reporting. For example, the FAO Global Forest Assessment, the UNFCCC, CBD, Sustainable Development Goals, among others. However, a national forest monitoring system is more than that. Some other uses that I can mention, for example, can be impact assessment of national hazard, like, for example, hurricane, earthquakes, landslides, droughts, wildfires. Sustainable development planning, building infrastructure, for example, land use management, watershed management, among others. Wildfire, pest, and disease monitor and control. In some cases as well, we can use this information for taxation, even when some people don't like to talk about taxation. Of course, this, for good or bad, this is information provided can be used as well for this purpose. And of course, there are other uses. Next. Okay, but another tricky question for the National Forest Monitoring System is what is required and expected at national and international level. Normally, people think that when we promote a national forest monitoring system, we should focus on reliable and transparent data and information. Next. And of course, at the end is what is expected. However, in order to be able to have this, we should expect from a national forest monitoring system to have in place country ownership. Countries need to be able to deal with all the process and not depend on external parties to carry out it. Of course, need to have a legal and policy framework. For sure, it is really important. We need to have well-defined what we want to have and how it can be implemented. Another thing is today is almost impossible to talk about forests without taking consideration and landscape view with a multi-purpose approach. There are too many interrelations, among forests and other land uses, and we cannot assess forests without assess them. Today, topics such as trees outside the forest, trees in urban areas, forest fragmentation, agroforestry system, landscape restoration, and others are taking more and more relevance, and we need to take them in consideration. In order as well to be sustainable in the long term, the National Forest Monitoring System needs to be institutionalized and have the human and financial resources available to be implemented. Forest monitoring have to have flexible approach because it is an evolving process and need to have clear collaboration with research, infrastructure, and capacity building. Have to be inclusive, with a participatory discussion process and have collaboration and exchange at international level. Be integrated and consistent with other sources of information and be flexible, including cost efficient. We need to have as well well-defined data and information sharing policy and promote the credibility through transparency and quality. These specific bullets I mentioned to you, as you can see, are the 14 principles promoted in the voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring. Those principles were highly discussed during different expert consultations, the FAO forestry commissions, and the aim of those principles is to ensure to have a reliable and transparent data and information in a sustainable in a long term. Those principles are the basis for the different elements and best practices suggested in the voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring. Next. FAO has a long history related with forest monitoring. In 1971, there was we can say a first milestone in this field with the publication of the book of Bernard Hosky, Planning a Forest Inventory. And since then, there have been several additional contributions that have provided complementaries and updates to this publication. Next, in 2017, we can as well mention that there was a second milestone in national forest monitoring with the publication of the Voluntary Guidance on National Forest Monitoring. With this document, FAO provides the guidance to set up and implement a national forest monitoring system. Next. The voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring were requested by member countries in September 2012 and endorsed in COFO 2016. It is free available in 6 different languages. Next. The aim of the voluntary guidance is to assist member countries setting up and implementing a national forest monitoring system. The guidance aims to be a technical reference for government bodies in charge of forest monitoring, educational and research institutes, the public and private sector, members of the civil society concerned with forests. Next. In the FAO guidance, a national forest monitoring system is defined as a system that comprises the people, institutions, and the resources that are implemented national forest monitoring at the country level in collaboration with other stakeholders, led by the governing body responsible for its conceptualization, planning, and execution, within a clear and well-defined mandate, based on the principles and elements introduced in the voluntary guidance. Next. The guidance introduced the 14 principles described before. Sometimes people ask me, why 14, why not 10, why 7 or more, you know? Well, as I mentioned before, we have a long discussion. It took around 2 years and a lot of technical expert consultation with academia, coordinators of national forest inventories in different countries and latitudes, politicians, etc. And then at the end, we became with those 14 principles that we had grouped in 5 different categories: governance, scope, design, data, and then the overall, you know, something that were not fitting very well in the other one. We put the overall. In each principle is related with different specific elements proposed, and they have the basis for the definition of the guidance. Without having well defined the principle, it was not possible to define the technical guidelines and good practices. Next. The principles provide us the framework for the guidance, as I already mentioned. The elements that contain the different guidance are grouped in 3 different pillars that are interrelated, but important to mention, not in a hierarchical order. The 3 groups of the elements are the foundation elements that provide us the strategical and political guidance. Here we can find good practices on institutionalization, developing national capacity and partnerships, strengthening research and research institutions. 2, the strategic elements that refers to the management and organization of the national forest monitoring. Here we include the definition of the mandate, the identification of information needs, stakeholders engagement, communication and dissemination, data management and archiving, impact assessment. And the 3rd, but not the least, the operational elements that include the guidance for the preparation of the data collection and management, the statistical and operation design, data management, analysis, documentation, and reporting. As you can see in this figure, a national forest monitoring system is quite complex, and it's not only dealing with data collection and analysis. This guidance summarizes good practices compiled from experts in different specialties, such as legal, IT, forest and land use, business administration, journalists, remote sensing, sociologists, gender, economists, among others, and of course, the long history and experience of FAO and other partners that support member countries in the field. This is why the guidance are an excellent reference to setting up and implement a national forest monitoring. Next. The guidance are a compilation of good practices, as I already mentioned, and provide the user with some suggestions and advice. They are not compulsory. Each country is free to use it or not. With the guidance, we try to identify an hypothetical national forest monitoring system that has been based on successful histories and lessons learned. The guidelines do not provide deeper information in technical issues. This is important to recall, because in most cases there are additional available publications and references that can provide more deep details. The guidance provide advice in some important points to be considered. For example, if you are collecting data, you must have a place for a repository infrastructure. If you want to set up a national forest monitoring system, you must have a clear mandate. Some of them seems to be simple and basic. However, do not take them in consideration can affect the well-development and implementation of a national forest monitoring system. Each element, as the example in this slide, you can see here, the element mandate have a number for its indication. In this case, it's the 4.1. A short description of the elements is added to this, and then the guidance of the good practices of each element. This is the same format for all the different guidance that you will find there on the elements. Again, the guidance are good practices that were defined during these expert consultations and based on FAO experience. Next. The use of the guidelines is easy and user-friendly. However, it can take time, and we require a multidisciplinary team to evaluate them. To facilitate the application of the evaluation of the voluntary guidance in each country, FAO has developed the National Forest Monitoring System Assessment Tool. I don't want to go into details on this because will be the topic for the next talk, but I just want to finalize my intervention saying that the guidelines are there and have been used by several countries already. Use them. They are user-friendly and really important, free of charge. We have compiled it to facilitate the work of member countries on National Forest Monitoring System implementation, and we hope countries can use them. Thank you all for your attention, and now I think we move to the next presentation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David. Thanks for that tour of national forest monitoring and of the voluntary guidelines. It was also particularly interesting, I think, to hear that about the participatory discussion process that led to them. And everyone, all the participants, if you have any questions for David, remember to start putting them in the Q&A box for him or for any of our speakers, and it will help if you want to add their names at the start of your question so we can find them. And as David just mentioned, next we have a presentation from Anatoly Pultuhidu, who you will know as a member of your support team of this course as well. Anatoly has been working for FAO for over 5 years, during which time she was mainly based in Bangladesh, supporting national forest monitoring there under the UN-RED program. Recently, Anatoly has contributed to developing a tool for assessing a country's national forest monitoring system, which David has just mentioned, and which she will now tell us more about. Over to you, Anatoly.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thanks, David, for your nice presentation. Welcome everyone to the webinar, and thank you very much for your engagement and contribution, particularly to the forums. So here we have a short presentation on the National Forest Monitoring System Assessment Tool, which is a tool that will help the users to identify easily in a quick way the potential gaps, weaknesses, and strengths that may exist in a national forest monitoring system. So let me introduce you to the tool. As David mentioned earlier, the tool was developed by FAO under the JEF-funded CBIT Forest project. It is basically an Excel-based tool. It is freely available on the internet. You can download it directly from the second lesson of the FAO e-learning course. Perhaps some of you have already did that. It is also available on the FAO Red Plus website or the website of the CBIT Forest project. The tool is accompanied by a quick guidance document that explains how to use the tool and describes the methodology and interprets the results. And what I would like to say is that both the tool, the Excel file, and the guidance are available in English, French, Spanish, and Chinese. And we are currently working on translating the tool in Arabic and Russian. So as David mentioned in his presentation, the tool is based on the Voluntary Guidelines on National Forest Monitoring, in combination with resources and materials from the Red Compass of the Global Forest Observation Initiative, and incorporating as well the experiences and lessons learned by FAO member countries. With regard to the objectives, the tool was developed with the aim to help countries in identifying the needs, gaps, and weaknesses that are associated with the design and the implementation of the existing national forest monitoring system. It also allows users to track the progress made on the establishment and implementation of the national forest monitoring system. It can provide guidance on the development of the NFMS implementation work plan, where areas of improvements can be identified and documented in collaboration always with key stakeholders and partners. And we hope that by using the tool, it will help you to get a better understanding of the document of the voluntary guidelines and successfully apply these guidelines in practice. So the tool aims to help countries assessing the capacity and status of their national forest monitoring systems. And this assessment takes place, as we see here, across three complementary themes, namely the institutional arrangements, measurement and estimation, and reporting and verification. So in this slide, we see that institutional arrangements are essential for effectively measuring, estimating, reporting, and verifying forest-related data and information, and therefore strong and robust institutional arrangements are on the basis of the MRV system. So how the assessment is conducted in this tool, here we use a rating scale from 0 to 3, as you can see in the slide here, where you are able to select from a drop-down list and evaluate the guidelines that are taken from the voluntary guidelines on national forest monitoring based on country-specific information, experience, and knowledge. So, for example, if a guideline is evaluated as 0, that shows that no action has been taken in a country to implement this guideline, and so this activity deserves priority in the future. 1 or 2 shows that there is awareness in a country to implement the guideline, however, further technical support is required. And finally, number 3 indicates that there is enough capacity in a country and there are no gaps or needs whatsoever at present. So who are the potential users of this tool? Basically, it can be used by anyone who is involved in the national forest monitoring. And more specifically, it can be used by government bodies responsible for forest monitoring, educational and research institutions, the public and private sectors, and members of civil society and other relevant stakeholders and partners. At present, the tool has been tested and used in several countries. I think we have around 10 across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And we are all very happy here today that we have here with us a representative of Mexico who will share with us the preliminary results obtained by using the tool. So we will see later on how Mexico used the tool to identify their own strengths and needs. Anyway, but all countries that did this exercise and used the tool and evaluated their NFMS followed a participatory approach to validate the results of their assessments involving key stakeholders. And the main output of these tasks is the development of a roadmap of actions that are needed to be taken in the future to address the gaps and further strengthen the national forest monitoring system. Finally, I would like to encourage all of you who are keen to learn more about the tool to read the information note and of course the guidance, which is available online, and you can also download it and use the tool and perhaps take this exercise and assess the needs and the capacity gaps of the NFMS of your own country. So thank you very much for your attention and looking forward to receiving your questions in the QA chat. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Anatoly. Great to see that the tool's already being used there in your last slides. Participants, as Anatoly said, feel free to access the tool if you haven't already. I'd now like to do a quick poll with 4 questions, which should appear on your screens any moment now. Okay, I can see it. I hope you can all see it as well. The first question is, has your country established a national forest monitoring system? Then please just click yes, yes but challenging, no but planned, no or you don't know. So participants, you just need to click on one of the answers that you think is most adapted to your situation. So far, I haven't seen yes. Okay, starting to get the answers in. Great. Going to give it a couple more seconds there. Okay, great. I see also people are starting on the second question. Let me just read that out as well. So the second question is, what is the main purpose of the data produced by the National Forest Monitoring System in your country? So what's the purpose of the data? Is it perhaps forest-related policy? Maybe it's research. Maybe it's for national reporting, perhaps on climate change or international reporting. Is it to monitor other national objectives? Or is it all of the above? Or maybe you don't know. The third question is, what are the main challenges to national forest monitoring system in your country? Maybe those challenges are more the nature of data quality. Maybe it's more institutional. Maybe it's lack of finance. Maybe it's maybe it's technical challenges, or maybe it's all of the above, or maybe again you just don't have enough information you just don't know, don't have enough information to judge. And finally, the fourth question is, what is the most critical area of your country's national forest monitoring system according to the following categories of the National Forest Monitoring System tool, which Anatoly just presented. So those three categories were institutional arrangements, measurement and estimation, or reporting and verification. So I see we've got quite a lot of responses already. That's great. Thank you, everyone. Keep on, maybe I keep it open. Let's keep the poll open for a couple of seconds more just to get more responses. And then we can take a look at the results. Okay. Yeah, I see we have about 50 people are responding. So maybe I'm going to give it a couple more seconds and then, because we're almost 200. Okay, maybe that's enough time. Maybe we can end the polling there and look at the results. Okay, great. Hope you can all see the results on your screen. So we can see for the first question, has your country established a national forest monitoring system? There was quite a range of answers, but over a third of those who responded said yes, your country does have a national forest monitoring system. So that's very exciting. It's probably music to David's ears, for example. For the question 2, what is the purpose of national forest monitoring system? What is the objective? And over 50% of the respondents said that it was all of the above. So that was forest policies, research, national, international reporting, and other objectives. And a few people said they don't know. And question 3, the main challenges of national forest monitoring systems in your country. Again, the majority, almost 50%, said all of the above. So there's challenges in all of the above fields, which is also really interesting. There's obviously there's still a lot of work to be done, which is a lot of work has been done, but there's still a lot of work to be done in the areas of data quality, institutional capacity, financial resources, and technical challenges. And finally, the most critical area was identified by over 1/3 of participants as being institutional arrangements, but almost a third, 32%, also identified measurement and estimation as being a critical area. So I think that's really interesting to see those results, and I think maybe we can stop sharing those results now. And everyone, participants, if you want to let us know what you think of those results, whether you agree with them, if you have any comments, you can write in the chat. So if I just close the screen of the poll, okay. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your engagement there. That was fun. Now for our next presentation, which is also our last presentation, we will hear from someone who has hands-on experience of setting up and operating a national forest monitoring system. We hear from Armando Alanis de la Rosa. He is manager of the National Forest Monitoring System of Mexico at CONAFOR, the National Forestry Commission of Mexico. Armando, great to have you here with us today. Please, over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, I will share now my screen, and please let me know if you can see it. It's okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you to the FAO and the initiative for inviting us to present the experience of Mexico in establishing and implementing our national forest monitoring system. As you mentioned, we are the National Forestry Commission, which is the main institution responsible of the forest policy in Mexico to promote the sustainable forest management, also conservation and restoration of forest ecosystems in Mexico. So I would like to start my presentation by giving you an overview of Mexico's forest, and just to see how difficult for us is to collect information about the forest ecosystems in Mexico. So we are a country with almost 200 million hectares, and 71% of that is considered as forest vegetation. This is natural vegetation in all over the country, and about 66 million hectares of that are three types of vegetation, like a temperate forest, rainforest, semi-dry forest, mangroves, and other three associations. This is important because Mexico to collect data for the forest sector in our country. So I would like to say also that we have already established a legal framework to implement the National Forest Monitoring System that is mostly based on the General Law for Sustainable Forest Development, which establishes the mandates for implementing the National Forest Monitoring System along with other national forest policy instruments such the National Forest and Soils Inventory, the National Forest Information and Management System, the Forest Zoning, and the National MRB System. We also have a law of the National System of Statistical and Geographic Information, which establishes institutional arrangements of a system that collects information not only about forests, but about any kind of statistical and geographic information in Mexico related with economic situation, financial, demographics, etc. And it established the responsibilities for every state agencies that are grouped in different um, uh, groups that collect information in different topics of the country. One of them is focused on environmental and forest resource matters. We also have a general law on climate change that mandates the formulation of the national greenhouse gases emissions inventory, in which our national forest monitoring system plays a key role in developing that inventory. So the components of the national forest system in Mexico are the National Forest and Soils Inventory, which is implemented to collect data and make analysis of that data from the field, and help us to produce information about key forest indicators like forest area, volume, growth, density, regeneration, biomass, carbon density, and other type of information. Then we have the forest zoning, that is an assessment of the forest area to classify it in different for different purposes, like forest conservation and restoration, and also for production purposes. We also have the satellite forest monitoring system that help us to create land cover maps and land cover change maps using a wall-to-wall approach, but also it helps us to assess deforestation and forest degradation, and to identify rates and drivers of deforestation in Mexico using a sampling approach. And finally, we have the national MRB system, which help us with all the accounting and reporting of greenhouse gases emissions, also to produce our forest reference emissions level, and also to make the accounting and of greenhouse emissions and mitigation in different projects, as well as to monitoring the NDC and their assessment. This is a very important part of the system because it helps us to fulfill the commitments with the Paris Agreement specifically. So I like to say also that our national forest system was designed mainly to respond to some questions about the forestry sector at national level. And this is important because uh, it poses a challenge to use information from the National Forest Inventory and the National Forest Monitoring System, and when we try to use it at smaller areas like states or municipalities or other small areas. And I would like to say that or information from the National Forest and Soils Inventory is recognized as information of national interest because it's used basically to uh, support design and assessment of national public policies. It fulfills the 4 criteria that you see in the right side of the slide. That is these are assessed by this national system for geographic and statistical information, and they decided in this group to approve this national forest and soils inventory as information of national interest, which should be used by federal agencies to produce any plan or to assess any plan related with the forestry sector in Mexico. We have a network of sampling sites in all over the country. It's more comprised for more than 26,000 primary sampling units, where we collect information in 1/5 of that units each year. We collect information about more than 170 variables in each primary and secondary sampling units. And we already have established these field manuals and procedures to collect and analyze this information. Is really a huge challenge for us to collect this information. And I have to say that right now we are facing financial problems to collect the data in that amount of sampling units. So this is the timeline of implementation of our national forest inventory in Mexico. We started in 2004, once the general law for sustainable forest development was published. We established strategic guidelines for this inventory, and since then we have produced or implemented two measurement and reporting cycles. The first one was 2004 to 2009. The second one was 2010 to 2014, and we are now working on the third measurement and reporting cycle that goes from 2015 to 2020. In this time, we also was able to produce a set of 32 state forest and soils inventories with information that was taken from the national forest inventory. So national forest system is a key element for national and international reporting. We use this information to report under the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically the 15 and 13 SDG, but also to report on different conventions like the UNFCCC, UNCCD, and also the Convention on Biological Diversity. And also we use this information to report on the voluntary process established by the United Nations Forum on Forest in order to present the advances or the in support of the UN strategic program on forest. And of course, we use all this information also to produce our national report for the forest resource assessment that is conducted every 5 years. So let me show you very quickly some of the main outputs that we have for the national forest monitoring system. We produce reports at national level. We also produce some reports at state level. We produce a statistical information that you can see in the form of charts or tables, but also we produce a geospatial information of the forestry sector, of some key indicators. If we look at the satellite forest monitoring system, we produce this kind of maps, land cover and land cover change maps, using the wall-to-wall approach that help us to establish or identify the drivers of deforestation and to understand why deforestation is occurring in the country. We also are able to produce this kind of information of the rate of deforestation in a period of time that goes from 2001 to 2019. That help us to understand where the deforestation is taking place by different ecoregions, but all are the direct causes of deforestation. This is what is the main activity that is causing deforestation in Mexico. So this is one of the key elements that we use in recently for reporting at national and international level. So the national MRV system produce information about what is the trends of the greenhouse gases emissions in forestry sector, and help us to establish the reference emissions level for Mexico, but also to formulate the national greenhouse gases inventory for the forestry sector. And then we can see that Mexican forests are a net carbon sinks that are able to remove up to 20% of the national greenhouse gases emissions each year. And also this identify the forestry sector as a key element for the fulfill or NDC mitigation commitments, and also to establish the policies to increase contribution of Mexico's forests to the NDC commitments. Finally, I would like to say that we made a preliminary assessment of the national forest monitoring system using the tool that was created and provided by the AFAO. And I have to say that this is a very important tool to assess what are the main gaps for our country and what are the things that we need to look at to improve our national forest monitoring system. For example, we can see here that in the case of Mexico, if we look at the places or the items where you can see a number one, for example, that this assessed as a number one, that are probably the most important items or topics that we need to take attention in the coming months or years. And for example, in the case of Mexico, it highlights that we need to work much better with research institutions to improve our national forest monitoring system. We have also to work on integration of young experts. That's something that we haven't done in Mexico. And also we have to work on the impact assessment. This means to understand how the general public or other agencies or other different stakeholders use the information of the national forest monitoring system to make decisions about how to manage the national or state or forest. We can see also, for example, in the case of the measurement and estimation and the 4.2 identification on information needs, that we have a 0 in one of these in these elements, and this is related with the consultation of stakeholders. And we see here in the case of Mexico a lack of involvement of, for example, communities and different stakeholders in explaining their needs of information from the National Forest Monitoring System. So also we have this in the reporting and verification component, that we need to strengthen our capabilities on reports preparation and submission. And that means that we need to be more efficient in communicate the results and all the information is related with the National Forest Monitoring System. So you can see that using this tool, you can have a quick overview of what are the needs of improvement for the National Forest Monitoring System, and you can see very exactly what is the areas where you need to work. And finally, I would like to end with presenting some of the challenges that we already have in Mexico for continue implementation of the National Forest Monitoring System. And one is the institutional arrangements and coordination. There are a lot of international and national initiatives that use this information and requires reporting on indicators. So it's quite challenging to organize the work with these different focal points. Also, we are facing an availability of financing a problem, and we are now having problems to have the sufficient money to collect data, to make the analysis, but also to scale up, for example, land cover and land cover change maps, and to produce the reporting. We have also some challenges in technical and institutional capabilities. We need to institutionalize work teams. We have reduced the staff or that staff that is very high or highly dependent on international support, especially in the case of MRV, and that poses a challenge for us to continue the work with these groups. Also, we have some problems accessing remote sensing data, to some technological tools like cloud processing, and we need to make constant technical and scientific innovation, and that's why we need to work more with the research institutions. We have also some challenges in reporting and transparency. We are really starting to work in this, and we are creating experience in how to make information more open and more transparent for different kinds of stakeholders. And finally, I think that one of the most pressing challenges is to respond to user demands, because information about forestry sector is very important, and people is asking for timely information almost in real time. And this is quite challenging, because if we present, for example, the rate of deforestation for the year 2009, they are asking already for the information about the rate of deforestation in 2021. And it takes a lot of time for us to produce that information. Also, many people try to use the information from the National Forest Monitoring System for a small area assessment. That means that they are trying to use this information to produce reports in a very small areas, and by design it's very difficult that information that is designed to be obtained at national level to be used as for this kind of small area assessments. And finally, we need to implement a more collaborative work with the research institutions to improve different methods for collecting data, for also for analyzing data, and for implement more effective ways to analyze information and produce reports in the case of Mexico. And with that, I would like to finish my presentation, thanking again to our colleagues of FAO. Here you can find some places where you can find information about the National Forest Inventory in Mexico and our National Forest Monitoring System. And this is my email, so you can reach me anytime if you have any questions or comments related with this issue. So I finish here, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Armando, for that great presentation, taking us through the use of the tool, the assessment tool, and the results from that, and as well as some of the challenges there at the end faced, giving us insight into those. That's really interesting, especially since we saw that over 50% of the countries of the participants here today have their own national forest monitoring system in place. So maybe some of those challenges as well were similar. I hope everyone found that very interesting as well, and you can consider how Mexico's experience compares to that of your own country of origin or of interest. Excellent. Thank you to all of our speakers there for those presentations, for giving us a nice overview generally of national forest monitoring systems from David, and then of the assessment tool from Anatoly, and finally to Armando there for showing us how it all applies in practice. And thank you all of you for engaging in the polls and in the Q&A box. It's now time for the question and answer session. So please don't hesitate to write your questions in the Q&A box, and we will do our best to get around to them. It'll help us again if you write the name of the person you want to address the question to, whether David, Anatoly, or Armando at the start of your question. And right now, just before we get to that, we have a special guest here with us today who participants should also recognize from the webinar recordings that you maybe watched as part of the course. We have here with us today Rafael Monge Vargas, who is the director at the National Geoinformational Geoenvironmental Information Center of Costa Rica. He is working on the National Forest Monitoring System of Costa Rica, which is called CIMOCUTE. Rafael, it's really great to have you back here again with us today. I think since the last time we spoke as well, there's been some good news. For Costa Rica, a significant step forward was being made with the release of a new decree, the issue of a new decree that establishes CIMOCUTE officially as the National Forest Monitoring System for forests, as well as of land cover and land use more broadly of Costa Rica. And I was looking through and I saw that the first article of the decree defines the institutional arrangements and the responsibilities for the management of the system. And it goes on to clearly state the objectives, the structure, the financing even, and also how the data is public and open access. So that's really fantastic to see, really exciting. And I think it could be of interest for everyone here today who's listening in to take a look at this decree, which I think we will put in the chat now, a link to. It would also be interesting to hear your experience, Rafael, of the process of getting this decree signed into law. Were there any points in the decree that took particularly long to gain consensus on, for example?
Hi, Emily, and thank you again for the invitation today. And hello, everyone who are participating in this MOOC, in this course. Congratulations for getting so far. Yes, since the first time we prepared the material for the course, and now we had this design of this decree, and it took us a while to get it because CIMOCUTE started in 2015, like with an executive order from the minister, but there's a higher level of normative or institutional arrangements that are the executive decree, and of course a higher one is a law, but we wanted to get to the executive decree with the different ministers that we consider important to be part of this intersectoral initiative, because we are not only planning to monitor our forests with our system. We are trying to build a comprehensive system that includes all land uses, all land covers, and also ecosystems. So we decided in the beginning to focus on the agriculture sector, for them to be part of our process in this monitoring system. The institution in charge of all the management of geographic information in Costa Rica, which depends on the Ministry of Justice. And this process has been very interesting, and I think one of the main challenges to get there from 2015 to now 2021 is to be able to understand each other, and that takes a lot of time. We sometimes are more aware of what are our challenges and situations in our institutions, but when you reach out to other colleagues in a broader way, because we're reaching out to all the different institutions, you get to understand their needs and their concerns, because they are also worried about their stakeholders and the people that they represent as a part of a government. And we are all looking for better ways to improve our way of living in our country for the agricultures, or from the different conservationist activities and all of those things. We want them to interact in a coherent way where we can benefit, but understanding that is very hard. And we established these working tables to get to analyze the different components of CIMOCUTE, and we've been talking in these tables for 6 years now, and also in a political way, and this has took time, but now we can say that we have reached a new level in CIMOCUTE in an implementation stage. Well, everything we have designed is time to put it into action, and we're very happy to get to this point, and we'll keep you informed on how it advances.
Great, thank you so much, Rafael. And congratulations again on getting that decree issued. Maybe you'd like to kick off our question and answer session with a question to Armando?
Yes, actually I do, and I really enjoyed Armando's presentation. It was, I I reflected a lot of things from our work here with what he presented, and I want to congratulate you on the level that you have achieved in your system. I'm very interested to know, how do you do to coordinate all these different components of your monitoring system, taking into account that you have a territory that is 38 times bigger than Costa Rica. For us, it's a challenge, but I imagine your case. Can you let me know some lessons learned from that?
Thank you, Rafael, and congratulations also for the degree on the Simocute. That is also one of the experience that in Mexico we are taking into our look, because we think it's very important to develop that kind of arrangements for improving the land planning. So regarding your questions, I would like to say that even that when our law established the mandate to collaborate with state governments and also other levels of government and other institutions, it has been very difficult to coordinate actions in a very efficient manner. And mostly CONAFOR has been done all of the work on this and in the past. So we work with the state levels, promoting them to work closely with CONAFOR, but has been very challenging because they don't have enough financial resources. So what we are doing is at least trying to create some capabilities at state level to produce some analysis of the information, and also to perform some kind of basic reporting from the national forest information that we have. So I have to say that we need to work more in this and to better coordinate with the state governments to improve information about the national forest monitoring system. As I mentioned in my presentation, we are focusing now in producing information at national level, and that makes a huge difference. And we don't have, I would also like to say that because the way we have our law, all matters related with forestry sector are responsibility of the federal government. So sometimes that makes very difficult for the state governments to work on these issues, because mostly we depend on what the federal agencies are doing in these matters. So I finalized this answer saying that we need to work more in strengthening the collaboration with different state government agencies and other kind of agencies. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Armando. You're not off the hook yet, I think, because I've got another question for you. So the voluntary guidelines in the presentation that we saw of David, the voluntary guidelines on national forest monitoring conceptualize national forest monitoring systems as consisting of 3 groups of elements. Foundation, which was institutionalization, capacity building, there's strategic elements, which was including defining the mandate, data dissemination and impact assessment, and the operational elements, which were including statistical design and data collection. So my question to you is, which of those 3 groups of elements, whether foundation, strategic, or operational, do you think was the most challenging in Mexico's case?
Yes, thank you, Emily. I think that the 3 groups or elements poses its own challenges. The 3 are very, very important. I would say that probably foundation would be one of the most important and also very challenging, because you need to find the political moment to do that, especially when you are talking about institutionalization, because you need to work not only with technical people, you need to work with the legislative people. I mean, people who makes the laws, and people who is in charge of the institutions. You need to convince them that it's important for the country to have an institutionalized national forest monitoring system to produce all the information. I think that it could be one of the most important. In the case of Mexico, what we had is that we took the chance in the moment where the political conditions were available and promote changes in our legislation to institutionalize the national forest monitoring systems. And so you need to work a lot with them. But also, I would say that in terms of the operational part of the national forest monitoring system, for example, we are now facing problems with the financing resources to implement the national forest monitoring system. So we need to work again with people that is outside the forestry sector, mostly in the Ministry of Finance and the legislation, find the enough financial resources to continue implementation of national forest monitoring system. I think that probably as technical people, we have a much better idea of where of what we have to do in terms of operational issues and the strategic view of the national forest monitoring system. But those that are related with people outside the sector that are not technical people, I could say that are very challenging for us. So we need to use the best of our capabilities to demonstrate them that national forest system is very, very important to fulfill the commitments that we have, for example, in the case of the Paris Agreement or other conventions, or even to promote the sustainable development of our countries. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Armando. And maybe I have another question here to David next. David, what uptake have you seen of the voluntary guidelines in the 4 years since they've been published? We saw a little bit in Anatoly's presentation, but who has been using them and have they led to tangible change in national forest monitoring systems around the world?
Thank you, Emily. It's a very nice question. You know, I can say that before the voluntary guidance, even definition or a concept of what national forest monitoring systems was not in place. You know, a lot of people talk about at that time national forest monitoring system is a system, is a remote sensing issue, blah, blah, blah. But now, you know, after the voluntary guidance, I think it came more clear to the governments and came more clear to the people what we are talking about, what is needed, you know, and then is something that we are putting in, you know, a new input to this process. And as you see, there are several countries, and you are learning during the course as well. There are countries that now are moving to this, and we hope that now the voluntary guidance, you know, will be a resource for the governments that can be used, and you know that can be used as a vehicle to set up and manage the national forest monitoring system in a sustainable way. Well, this is our hope, and yes, let's try to do it.
Thanks. And similar to the question to Armando, what do you think, David, are the persistent major challenges to forest monitoring around the world?
I'm sorry, Emily, I didn't hear the question.
Oh, sorry, Armando. I wanted to address the question to David, but it was related to the question I asked to you, which is about challenges. Yeah. So David.
Okay, I think Armando already mentioned, you know, some of the challenges he has in his own hands, you know, in the development of the Mexico national forest monitoring system. But you know, it depends. You know, I would like to not only talk about challenge, but as well to include the opportunities. You know, because as a challenge, perhaps I can mention. You know, if we go to a country and the country do not have in place a national forest monitoring system as it is, you know, then the issue of forest monitoring is not real. Sometimes we have a process for data collection. We have forest information that is collected for a specific project, to respond to a specific project, and then there is no continuation. There is nothing there. Capacity is lost. Sometimes even the information is lost. And then it comes with the problem of the institutionalization. We need to have the mandate. We need to have as well the financial resources available. This is important to keep it. A second challenge perhaps is the expertise available. It's not in everywhere that we find people with good training, with good skills to develop forest monitoring. There's something that we need to invest a little bit more. We as FAO, we as well are working very hard on this, but we need more support from other stakeholders to really bring the knowledge to the countries where still there are some weakness on the skills. And then in the case of opportunities, I would like to say that, talking in the terms of Mexico is so big, but I will say that as an opportunity that is coming, it's now everybody wants to talk about high tech, but high tech is as well something that is coming to support us. When we talk about artificial intelligence, big data, analysis in the cloud, now that we talk about data sharing agreements, for example, free access of remote sensing, high resolution imagery, for example, LiDAR technology, this will change our paradigms and will make the national forest monitoring system more transparent and cost efficient. And of course, we need to do more of this. And yeah, I stop here to take all.
Thanks a lot, David. I have a question from the Q&A box to Anatoly. I'm just putting it into a translator now, and I will read it out. Okay, Anatoly, can you help us analyze how we can ensure that the strengthening of national forest monitoring systems in the countries is not only focused on the need for international reports, but that they are instruments that favor decision-making on sustainable production, and on the other hand, how to minimize the dependence on the responsible officials on consultants. And that question was from Karem Eliseche. Thank you, Karem.
Yeah, thanks, Karem, for your question. Indeed, it's very interesting, and I think is a question that every country is reflecting on. For me, I think the most important thing is the fact that first of all, the data that we need to collect, and the data that we need to identify that is needed should be done through a participatory process. So again, the key thing here is the inclusion of all parties and stakeholders, taking into account that the data that we need can be served for can be used for several purposes. So here we need to highlight the fact that a sustainable and robust national forest monitoring system should be multi-purpose, should be able to serve different purposes, both for national reporting and for international reporting purposes and reports that we need to submit to the UNFCCC. But also we need what I want to say is that basically we need the same data, either for national or international reporting. And I think it is key thing to establish robust institutional arrangements. So we build and strengthen the country capacity, and so to minimize our dependence on consultants with a very maybe short-based contract. So we need maybe a long-term staff that are able to commit and continue working on the country. I think maybe Carla, if you would like to add something more on this.
Thank you, Anatoly, and thank you for the question. Yes, to complete only, I think or many countries started the NFMS not for the international reporting. They started for evaluate their own policies. So I think when you start the NFMS planning, you can develop some indicators for the country level. So after that, you can address your information needs and variables to respond to these indicators. And related to how to minimize the dependence for the about the consultants, I think you can develop a training plan for a long-term training plan. And it is complicated because in many cases you should change also the specific institutional arrangements to give to your staff the new functionality or functions or the tasks that these persons should develop. And then you should start give them the capacities, giving them the opportunity to be trained. And there are a lot of opportunities at the international level, but also you should develop something at a local level. Also working with the universities who should participate in this training plan for the institutional staff. That can be some ideas for how to start minimizing this dependency.
Thanks a lot, Natalie and Carla. And I see also Karem has responded in the chat to both of you as well. So that's great. Okay, I think we have maybe time for one more question. Back to Armando. So Armando, our second webinar tomorrow of this course will be with experts from the UNFCCC working on transparency. So the question to you is, how has the National Forest Monitoring System of Mexico contributed to transparency?
Oh, thank you, Emily. This is a very good question. I will say that in general terms, our legislation says that most of the information that is produced by federal agencies or the state agencies should be public and published in different ways and platforms in Mexico. So we are committed with transparency in this case. And specifically in the case of how the National Forest Monitoring System has contributed to transparency in Mexico in the context of UNFCCC, is that we have been able to produce information about, for example, the trends of deforestation and associated greenhouse gases emissions that is formulated using the guidance of the IPCC, and also assessed by the convention in the process that are very strict, and they establish a lot of requests related with transparency. So we have we have been implementing these actions to make information more transparent in the case of the forestry sector, to address this request of transparency from different works. So I would say that one of the most important parts here is that all the information that is used to estimate emissions, for example, or forest area or rates of deforestation should be available for different stakeholders, especially when we are working in these processes like the assessment performed by the UNFCCC. I hope that I answered your question.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Armando. And I look forward to seeing the participants again tomorrow in tomorrow's webinar on transparency to learn more about what Armando was just saying as well. So thanks so much to all of our presenters today. We We had Armando, Anatoly, and David, and also a special guest, Rafael, for being here with us again. That was great. And thanks especially to all of you who participated today. I think we managed to pack a lot into the past hour and a half, and it was great to see that we had almost 200 people online with us. So that's really nice. And hopefully it's helped cement a little bit some of the things that you've been learning over the past couple of weeks of the course. I've noticed, I think there's still quite a few questions in the Q&A box. Let me just open it. Okay, we got through about half of them, but we don't have time anymore, unfortunately, to go through the rest, but we will answer all of them in a follow-up with the recordings and the presentations. We will get around to all those questions and share them with you. And with that, I would like to hand over to Rocío Condor for some concluding remarks. Over to you, Rocío.
Thank you very much, Emily. To summarize, today's webinar was about national forest monitoring systems on paper and in practice. We know that national forest monitoring systems are useful as they generate information for multiple needs related to forests. Those needs include, for example, the need to know about extractable timber, biodiversity, or perhaps medicinal uses that people make of the forest, as well as international reporting on REDD+, to the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Global Forest Resources Assessment. We know that an NFMS is fundamental for forest monitoring in a country, and we have guidance. The voluntary guidelines on national forest monitoring, developed through negotiation and consensus between many stakeholders from around the world, arrived at over a number of years, which David told us about. A handy derivative of the voluntary guidelines is the NFMS assessment tool, which Anatoly presented, enabling quick and easy assessment of an NFMS using material from the voluntary guidelines as well as the REDD+ guidance. Armando showed us how the tool was applied in Mexico and gave us a tour of Mexico's NFMS, highlighting success, challenges, and next steps as food for thought when thinking about the NFMS of your own country of interest. We also heard the latest from Costa Rica, where a new decree has been signed that helps ensure the sustainability and transparency of the country's NFMS. Tomorrow, we will have the second and final webinar of this MOOC, and it will focus on the importance of such institutional arrangements for transparency, and more broadly, will focus on climate action under the Paris Agreement. That is tomorrow, 9 June at 2:30 in English, with translation into French and Spanish, with the title Transitioning from the Measurement, Reporting, and Verification Framework to the Enhanced Transparency Framework. So looking forward to seeing you all back here tomorrow. Thanks and goodbye. Back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Rocío. Thanks for those closing remarks. We're a little bit early, but I think maybe we can say goodbye here. Thank you to everyone, all our speakers and all our participants for joining us today. That was great. And yeah, as Rocío said, hopefully we will see you tomorrow, the 9th of June, 2:30 p.m. Central European Time, with English, Spanish, and French. So the title is Transitioning from the Measurement, Reporting, and Verification Framework to the Enhanced Transparency Framework. So looking forward to again tomorrow. Bye.